Have you ever given up everything for someone you loved? I mean everything. Your career, your dreams, your identity. Only to have them look you in the eye and tell you they're done with you? My name is Jennifer Martinez and I'm from Houston, Texas. For 7 years I worked 3 jobs to put my husband through medical school. I changed diapers, packed lunches, paid every bill and held our family together while he studied to become a surgeon. The day he matched with Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, one of the most prestigious surgical residencies in the country, I thought we'd finally made it. I thought our sacrifice had been worth it. Instead, 2 weeks after his white coat ceremony, he handed me divorce papers. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. But that's not even the worst part. What I discovered about his life during medical school, the woman he'd been hiding, the lies about our children, and what he tried to do to me in court. It almost destroyed me. I'm sharing my story today because maybe you're going through something similar. Maybe you're sacrificing everything for someone who doesn't deserve it. Or maybe you need to hear that even when someone takes everything from you, you can still rebuild. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let me tell you about the 7 worst years of my life and how I finally found myself again. Let me take you back to 2015. I was 28 years old, living in a small 2-bedroom apartment in Spring, Texas, just north of Houston. I had been married to my husband, David Martinez, for 3 years. We had 2 beautiful babies, Sophia, who was 2, and baby Ryan, who was just 6 months old. I need you to understand something about the woman I was back then. Before David, before marriage, before kids, I was someone with dreams. I had graduated from the University of Houston with a degree in marketing and had been working my way up at a digital advertising agency in downtown Houston. By 26, I was an account manager making $65,000 a year. Not rich, but comfortable. I was good at my job. Really good. I loved the creativity of it, the strategy, the rush of landing a big client. My boss, Catherine Williams, used to tell me I had a natural gift for understanding what people wanted before they even knew it themselves. Then I met David at a friend's wedding in Austin. He was charming, intelligent, and had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. He was working as a medical scribe at Memorial Hermann Hospital, saving money and studying for the MC, the medical college admission test. I'm going to be a surgeon, he told me on our 3rd date, his eyes shining with ambition. I want to save lives. I want to make a difference. How could I not fall for that? We got married in 2012 in a small ceremony at my parents' house in Pearland. David's parents, immigrants from Taiwan who'd sacrificed everything to give their son opportunities, flew in from San Francisco. His mother, Margaret, pulled me aside during the reception. "You're so good for my David," she said, squeezing my hand. "He needs someone stable. Someone who will support his dreams." I didn't realize then that she was actually warning me. Then Sophia was born in 2013, right after David took the MC. He scored well, 518 out of 528, which put him in the 97th percentile. "Good enough for medical school," he said. "Good enough to change our lives. But medical school is expensive. Really expensive. We're talking $60,000 a year in tuition alone, plus books, equipment, living expenses, and all the hidden costs nobody tells you about." David applied to the University of Texas Medical School at Houston because it was in-state and affordable. He got in for the fall 2016 semester. By then I was pregnant with Ryan. Here's where the story really begins. The day David got his acceptance letter, we sat down at our tiny kitchen table to talk about finances. I was 5 months pregnant, still working full-time, and Sophia was starting to walk and get into everything. "We'll make it work," David said, holding my hand. 4 years of medical school, then residency. It's going to be hard, but then we'll have the life we've always dreamed of. 4 years. That's what he promised. 4 years of sacrifice, then everything would be better. I believed him. God, I believed every word. So let me ask you something. Have you ever made a decision that you thought was right at the time, but looking back you can see all the red flags you ignored? Drop a comment if you have, because I want you to know you're not alone. David started medical school in August 2016, 2 weeks before Ryan was born. The plan was simple. I would keep working, we'd take out student loans for his tuition, and we'd live frugally for 4 years. But reality hit hard and fast. My maternity leave was 12 weeks. 3 months of bonding with my newborn son while trying to manage an energetic 3-year-old daughter. I was exhausted, overwhelmed, and honestly, I was happy. Despite the chaos, I had this beautiful family and a husband who was pursuing his dreams. When I went back to work in November, everything fell apart. Daycare for 2 kids in Houston was $2,200 a month. Our rent was $1,400. Car payments, insurance, utilities, groceries, student loan payments from my own undergraduate degree. It all added up so fast that I would lie awake at night doing math in my head, trying to figure out how to make it work. David couldn't work during medical school. Or at least that's what he told me. Medical school was too demanding, too intense. He needed to focus completely on his studies if he was going to become the best surgeon possible. By January 2017, when Ryan was 4 months old, I took on a second job. I started freelancing as a social media consultant in the evenings and on weekends, managing accounts for small businesses. My schedule looked like this. Wake up at 5:30 a.m., pump breast milk while responding to client emails. Get Sophia dressed and fed while David slept in, he'd been studying late, he needed rest. Drop both kids at daycare by 7:30. Work my full-time job from 8 to 5. Pick up the kids by 5:30. Make dinner, do bath time, bedtime routine. Start my freelance work at 9 p.m., work until midnight or 1 a.m. Then do it all over again. David would come home from medical school around 6 or 7 p.m., if he came home at all. More often he was at study groups or the library or working with his anatomy lab partners. You don't understand how hard this is, he'd tell me when I'd ask him to help with the kids. I'm dissecting cadavers, Jennifer. I'm memorizing thousands of drug interactions. I need to focus. My daughter Sophia started calling me by my first name sometimes instead of Mommy, because she heard David saying it so much. Ryan learned to crawl, then walk, and I have maybe 3 photos of those milestones because I was always too tired to remember to take pictures. I stopped seeing my friends. I stopped going to my book club. I stopped doing yoga, which had been my one stress relief. I stopped being Jennifer and became just a function. A caretaker. A support system for David's dreams. But I told myself it was temporary. 4 years. We could survive anything for 4 years. In May 2017, at the end of David's first year, our finances were so dire that I took on a third job. I started working overnight shifts at a 24-hour urgent care clinic as a medical receptionist, Friday and Saturday nights, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. My mother, Rosa, would come stay with the kids those nights. But what choice did I have? The student loans weren't enough. David's medical school expenses kept growing. There were examination fees, study materials, professional clothing for clinical rotations. And then there was the real kicker. David started asking for more money. I need to network, he'd say. I need to have coffee with my study group. I need to look professional. I can't be the only medical student who can't afford to go out after exams. So I gave him money. Money we didn't have. Money I was earning at 1 a.m. on a Saturday night while he was. Where was he exactly? Let me ask you this. Would you sacrifice your health, your career, your relationship with your children for someone else's dream? Or is there a line you wouldn't cross? Tell me in the comments because I'm curious where other people draw that line. Because I'll be honest with you, I didn't have a line. I had completely erased myself. The first time I really, truly felt something was wrong was in November 2017. About halfway through David's second year of medical school. It was Thanksgiving weekend. My family always gathered at my parents' house in Pearland for a big celebration. Turkey, tamales, we're Mexican American, so we blend traditions, the whole works. It was one of the few times I actually got to relax and feel like myself. David said he couldn't come. He had an important exam the following week and needed to study. I took Sophia and Ryan to my parents' house without him. My sister Carmen, who's 2 years younger than me, pulled me aside in the kitchen while I was washing dishes. Have you seen David's Instagram? She asked quietly. I told her I barely had time to check my own Instagram, let alone anyone else's. Carmen handed me her phone. David had posted a photo 3 hours earlier. He was at a restaurant. Not just any restaurant but Papa's Brothers Steakhouse, one of the most expensive restaurants in Houston. He was with a group of people from medical school. All dressed up, all smiling, holding glasses of wine that probably cost $20 each. The caption read, "Grateful for these amazing friends who make the med school grind bearable." I stared at that photo for a long time. While I was working 3 jobs and missing Thanksgiving with my husband, he was at a steakhouse with his friends, drinking expensive wine and eating $60 steaks. When I confronted him that night, he was defensive. It was a study group celebration, he said. We finished a major block of exams. Everyone went. I couldn't be the only one who didn't show up. We can't afford that, David, I said. I was trying not to cry. I'm working overnight shifts so we can pay rent, and you're spending money on expensive dinners? One of the other students paid for most of it, he insisted. It barely cost me anything. But I didn't believe him. And that was the first crack in the foundation. The second warning sign came in February 2018. David had started his clinical rotations, which meant he was actually working in hospitals, seeing patients, learning from attending physicians. He told me he'd be working even longer hours, sometimes 12 or 14-hour shifts. I understood. Clinical rotations were supposed to be grueling. But then strange things started happening. He started showering as soon as he got home before he even said hello to me or the kids. He started buying new clothes. Nice clothes, professional clothes that he said he needed for rotations. He got a new haircut at an expensive salon in the medical center instead of his usual supercuts. And he started smelling different. Not like hospital antiseptic but like expensive cologne. One night in March, David left his phone on the kitchen counter while he was in the shower. It buzzed with a text message. I wasn't trying to snoop. The screen just lit up right in front of me. The message was from Dr. Juliana K. And it read, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Same time, same place." My heart stopped. I picked up the phone to see more, but it was password protected. David had changed his password. He'd never had a password on his phone before. When he came out of the shower, I asked him about it. "Dr. Juliana K?" I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "Who's that?" David didn't even hesitate. "Dr. Juliana Kowalski. She's the attending physician supervising my surgery rotation. We have to meet tomorrow to go over my evaluation." It was a smooth explanation. Too smooth. I tried to tell myself I was being paranoid. I was exhausted, stressed, working all the time. My mind was playing tricks on me. But a week later, I was doing laundry and found a receipt in David's scrub pants pocket. It was from a hotel in downtown Houston. The Houstonian Hotel, to be specific. A luxury boutique hotel that charges $300 a night minimum. The receipt was dated on a Thursday afternoon, 2 weeks earlier. A Thursday when David had texted me saying he had to stay late at the hospital for an emergency surgery observation. I sat on the floor of our bedroom with that receipt in my hand and I knew. I absolutely knew. But I didn't want to know. Does that make sense? I had invested so much, so many years, so much money, so much of myself, that I couldn't face the truth. So I put the receipt back in his pocket, finished the laundry and never mentioned it. Have you ever known something but been too afraid to confront it? Have you ever buried the truth because facing it would destroy everything you'd built? If you have, I need you to know something. That's not weakness. That's survival. Sometimes we do what we need to do to get through one more day. But ignoring the truth doesn't make it go away. It just makes it worse when it finally explodes. Everything came crashing down in December 2018, during David's third year of medical school. It was the kids' Christmas program at Sophia's preschool. She was 5 years old and so excited to be performing in her first real show. She'd been practicing her songs for weeks, singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, constantly around the house. David promised he'd be there. He promised Sophia. He looked her in the eye and said, "Daddy wouldn't miss it for the world." The program was at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. I left work early, sacrificing my lunch break and staying late the rest of the week to make up for it. I sat in that tiny preschool auditorium saving a seat for David. He never showed up. Sophia kept looking for him in the audience while she sang. I could see her little eyes scanning the crowd looking for her daddy. When she finally spotted me sitting alone with Ryan on my lap, her face fell. After the program she ran up to me and asked, "Where's Daddy?" He promised. I didn't have an answer. I called David 3 times. No response. I texted him. Nothing. He finally called me back at 6 p.m. just as I was putting the kids to bed. "I'm so sorry," he said. "There was an emergency. A patient coded and I had to assist. You know how it is." But I didn't believe him anymore. I was done believing him. That night, after the kids were asleep, I did something I'd never done before. I opened David's laptop, which he'd left at home, and I looked at his email. I know. Some of you are judging me right now. You're thinking I violated his privacy, that I was wrong to snoop. But I need you to understand, I wasn't some crazy jealous wife. I was a woman who had given up everything, who was working herself to death, and who knew in her gut that something was very, very wrong. What I found in that email account destroyed me. There were dozens of emails between David and Dr. Juliana Kowalski, and they weren't professional emails about medical training. They were love letters. I can't stop thinking about yesterday afternoon, one email read. Being with you makes all the stress of med school disappear. You're the only person who really understands me. Another one from Dr. Juliana. I know this is complicated with your situation at home, but we can't keep hiding forever. When you finish medical school, we can finally be together properly. My situation at home. That's what he called me. Not his wife. Not the mother of his children. Not the woman working 3 jobs to support his dreams. His situation at home. I scrolled back through months of emails. The affair had been going on for over a year. Since March 2017, right when he started his clinical rotations. Dr. Juliana Kowalski was the attending physician supervising his surgery rotation. That part had been true. She was 38 years old, divorced, no kids. She lived in a condo in the museum district, drove a Mercedes, and made over $350,000 a year as a trauma surgeon at Memorial Hermann. The hotel receipts I'd found? Those were from their afternoon meetings. Expensive dinners? She'd been paying for them. The new clothes, the cologne, the constant showering? All for her. But the email that broke me was the one from November. David had written to her, only 1 more year of medical school, then residency match, and then I'm free. I'm already talking to my attorney friend about the easiest way to handle the divorce. Don't worry, Texas is a no-fault state. It'll be quick. He'd been planning to divorce me since November. For over a year I'd been working myself to death, sacrificing time with my children, destroying my health and my career, all while he was planning his exit strategy. I sat at that kitchen table reading email after email and I felt like I couldn't breathe. Have you ever had a moment where your entire reality just shatters? Where everything you thought you knew turns out to be a lie? That was me on December 18, 2018 at 11:47 p.m., sitting in my tiny apartment kitchen with a cup of cold tea and a laptop full of proof that my marriage was over. I didn't confront him that night. I was too shocked, too devastated. Instead, I took screenshots of everything. Every email. Every receipt I could find in his files. Every piece of evidence of his affair and his plans to abandon us. Then I called my sister. Carmen, I whispered when she answered, trying not to wake the kids. I need help. Can you come over tomorrow? Carmen arrived the next morning with coffee and her own laptop. She's a paralegal at a family law firm in Houston, and she knew exactly what I needed to do. You need to protect yourself, she told me. Financially, legally, everything. Document everything. And you need to talk to an attorney. Today. Have you ever sacrificed for someone who forgot you? Hit subscribe. This space is for you. That afternoon, while David was at his study group, probably at Juliana's condo, I met with Patricia Thompson, one of the senior attorneys at Carmen's firm. I brought all the evidence I'd collected. Patricia looked through everything with a grim expression. Jennifer, she said finally, I'm going to be honest with you. This is going to be ugly. He's going to fight for custody and he's going to try to minimize his child support obligations. Medical students are considered low income, even though their future earning potential is huge. What do you mean, fight for custody? I asked. He barely sees the kids now. He's never home. Patricia leaned back in her chair. That won't matter to a judge. He's going to be a doctor. He'll argue that he'll have financial stability, a prestigious career, that he can provide better for the children long term. And his girlfriend? If she's involved, she'll be painted as a stable, successful physician who can be a positive influence. I felt sick. So he cheats on me, abandons his family, and he still might get custody? Welcome to family court, Patricia said grimly. It's not about what's fair. It's about what we can prove and how we present it. I want to stop here and ask you something. How many of you have been through a divorce? And how many of you know someone who got completely screwed over in family court, even though they were clearly the victim? Drop a comment because I think this is something we don't talk about enough. The system is broken and it punishes the people who've already been hurt the most. I confronted David on December 22, 2018, 3 days before Christmas. The kids were at my mother's house for the evening. I'd planned this carefully with Patricia's advice. I'd opened my own bank account and transferred half of our savings, which was only $1,200, but it was something. I changed all my passwords. I'd made copies of every financial document, every tax return, every student loan statement. I was ready. When David came home that evening, I was sitting at the kitchen table with the printed emails spread out in front of me. He walked in, saw the papers, and his face went completely white. "Jennifer," he started. "Don't," I cut him off. "Don't you dare lie to me anymore. I know everything. I know about Juliana. I know about the hotel rooms. I know you've been planning to divorce me." What happened next is something I'll never forget. David didn't apologize. He didn't beg for forgiveness. He didn't even try to deny it. Instead, he got angry. "You went through my email," he shouted. "You violated my privacy. Do you have any idea how illegal that is? Can you believe that? He was the one having an affair, planning to abandon his family, and he was mad at me for finding out. I've been working 3 jobs to support you," I shouted back. "I've given up everything for your dream, and you're sleeping with your supervisor and planning to leave me. You don't understand," David yelled. "You have no idea what kind of pressure I'm under. Juliana gets it. She's been through medical school. She knows what it takes. You just work your little jobs and complain." I threw a coffee mug. I'm not proud of it, but I threw it at the wall behind him and it shattered. Ryan started crying in his room. He'd woken up from the noise, even though he was supposed to be at my mother's. She'd brought him back because he was running a fever. That's when David said something that made my blood run cold. "You know what? Good. This makes it easier. I want a divorce, Jennifer. I've wanted one for over a year. And you know what else? I'm going to fight for full custody of the kids." I stared at him. "You're never here. You don't take care of them. You don't even know Ryan's pediatrician's name." "I'm going to be a surgeon," David said coldly. "I'm going to have a 6-figure income. Juliana makes $350,000 a year. We can provide stability, education, opportunities. What can you provide? You're exhausted, you're never home because you're working all the time, and you're clearly unstable." And that's when I realized he'd been planning this argument. Maybe Juliana had coached him. Maybe he'd already talked to an attorney. But he was going to paint me as the unfit parent because I was working multiple jobs to support his dream. He moved out that night, taking only a suitcase of clothes. He went straight to Juliana's condo in the museum district. I know because Carmen's husband, who's a police officer, did a little unofficial checking for me. On Christmas Eve, 2 days later, I was served with divorce papers. David was suing me for divorce on grounds of insupportability, which is Texas legal language for irreconcilable differences. He was also suing for primary custody of Sophia and Ryan, with me getting standard possession, which in Texas means every other weekend and Thursday evenings. He wanted me to have my children every other weekend. Like I was the one who had destroyed our family. But here's where it gets even worse. The divorce petition included a financial affidavit where David claimed he had no income and no assets. He was a full-time medical student with $240,000 in student loan debt. He argued that he couldn't pay child support, and that I should actually be responsible for half of his student loans since they were marital debt. Let me say that again for the people in the back. He wanted me to pay for half of the student loans for his medical education. The education I'd been working 3 jobs to support while he was having an affair. Patricia called me after she received the petition. "Jennifer," she said, "I need you to prepare yourself. This is going to be a fight. He's playing dirty and he has nothing to lose. You're going to need to be strong." But I didn't feel strong. I felt broken. I felt like I'd given 7 years of my life to a man who saw me as nothing more than a temporary support system, and now he wanted to take my children too. Christmas 2018 was the worst Christmas of my life. Sophia kept asking where Daddy was and why he wasn't coming to open presents. Ryan, who was 2 years old, didn't really understand, but he could feel that something was wrong. I tried to make it special for them. I really did. But I spent Christmas night crying in the bathroom after they went to sleep, wondering how I was going to survive this. Have any of you been there? Have you been at that absolute rock bottom where you don't know how you're going to make it through the next day, let alone the next month or year? If you have, I want you to keep watching because I promise you, there's a way through. Doesn't feel like it at the time, but there is. The custody battle began in January 2019, David's final semester of medical school. The first temporary orders hearing was brutal. David showed up in a suit with Juliana by his side. She didn't testify, but her presence was clearly meant to send a message. Look at us, we're successful, stable professionals. I showed up with Carmen and Patricia, wearing the same black dress I'd worn to every important event for the past 3 years because I couldn't afford anything new. David's attorney, a slick guy named Robert Chin who specialized in high-net-worth divorces, painted a picture of me as an absent, overwhelmed mother who was too busy working to properly care for the children. Your Honor, he said, Ms. Martinez is currently working 3 jobs, sometimes 70 to 80 hours per week. She's regularly leaving the children with her mother or with paid childcare providers. She's exhausted, stressed, and by her own admission, barely has time to see her children. Everything he said was technically true. But the reason why I was working 3 jobs, that part didn't seem to matter. Patricia fought back hard. She presented all the evidence of David's affair, the financial records showing how I'd been supporting the family, the text messages showing how often David canceled on the kids or simply didn't show up. Your Honor, Patricia argued, Mr. David is conveniently ignoring the fact that Ms. Martinez has been the sole financial provider for this family for over 2 years. She's been working multiple jobs because Mr. Martinez refused to work even part-time during medical school. She's been the primary caregiver despite this massive work burden. And Mr. Martinez has been carrying on an extramarital affair with his supervisor for over 18 months while his wife sacrificed everything to support his education. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Judge Sandra Whitmore, looked tired and unimpressed with both sides. She granted temporary orders that gave us 50-50 custody on a week-on, week-off schedule. David would pay $400 a month in temporary child support based on minimum wage calculations since he was still a student. I would keep the apartment in my car. David would keep his car, which was actually in his parents' name anyway. It wasn't the worst outcome, but it wasn't what I wanted. I wanted my children with me full-time. I wanted David to be held accountable for abandoning his family. But this was just the beginning. Over the next few months, David started a pattern that I would later learn is called parental alienation. During his weeks with the kids, he would buy them expensive toys and take them to fun places. The zoo, the children's museum, trampoline parks. He had money now because Juliana was funding his lifestyle. But more insidiously, he started making subtle comments to undermine me. Sophia, who was 5, started saying things like, Daddy says you have to work too much because you're not good with money. Or, Daddy's new friend Juliana is so nice. He has a big house. Why don't we have a big house? Ryan was too young to really be influenced yet, but David was working on Sophia systematically. In March 2019, David matched for his residency. He got his top choice, Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, Maryland, for general surgery. It's one of the most competitive and prestigious surgical residencies in the country. He was leaving Texas, which meant he'd be 1,500 miles away from his children. I thought naively that this would work in my favor. Surely a judge wouldn't let him take the kids to Maryland when they'd lived their whole lives in Houston, when all their family was here, when I was their primary caregiver. I was wrong. At the final custody hearing in May 2019, right before David's medical school graduation, his attorney argued that David should be allowed to move to Baltimore with the children. Your Honor, Robert Chin said, Mr. David has been accepted to one of the most prestigious medical residencies in the country. This is an incredible opportunity that will allow him to provide exceptional stability and opportunities for his children. Dr. Kowalski has also accepted a position at Johns Hopkins. They're planning to marry and provide a stable 2-parent home with a combined income that will exceed $400,000 per year. Wait, they were getting married? This was news to me. Juliana hadn't even been divorced for 2 years yet. Patricia objected immediately. Your Honor, these children have lived in Houston their entire lives. Their mother, their grandmother, their aunt, their entire support system is here. Mr. David has barely been an active parent for the past 3 years. And now he wants to uproot these children and move them across the country away from everyone they know. The judge took a week to decide. That was the longest week of my life. The ruling came down on May 15, 2019. I remember the date because it was Sophia's 6th birthday. Judge Whitmore ruled that David could not relocate the children to Maryland without my permission. She found that it was in the children's best interest to remain in Houston near their extended family and their mother, who had been their primary caregiver despite working multiple jobs. However, and this is where it gets complicated, she also ruled that I would have primary custody during the school year, and David would have the children for the entire summer break, plus alternating holidays. 3 months. He'd get my babies for 3 entire months every summer. I should have felt relieved. I'd won primary custody. The kids would stay in Houston with me, but all I could think about was those 3 summer months when my children would be 1,500 miles away with a father who barely knew them and his mistress-turned-fiancé. Patricia tried to reassure me. Jennifer, this is actually a good outcome. You kept primary custody. He has to pay child support now. They'll calculate it based on a resident's salary, which is around $60,000. You won. But it didn't feel like winning. David's medical school graduation was on May 18, 2019, 3 days after the custody ruling. I didn't go, obviously. But my former mother-in-law, Margaret, sent me photos. She was still trying to maintain a relationship with me. She was devastated by what her son had done. In the photos, David was wearing his white coat, smiling broadly with his arm around Juliana. She was beautiful, I have to admit. Tall, blonde, polished in a way I could never afford to be. His parents stood on his other side, looking proud but uncomfortable. There was one photo that Margaret didn't mean to send, but it came through in the batch. David and Juliana were kissing with the medical school building in the background. The caption on Instagram, yes, he'd posted it publicly, read, "New beginning with my love. Houston to Baltimore. Let's do this. New beginning." As if the 7 years with me, the 2 children we'd created, the sacrifices I'd made, as if all of that was just the old life he was leaving behind. The divorce was finalized on June 3, 2019. 7 years of marriage, ended with a judge's signature. The final decree gave me primary custody during the school year. David would have summer possession from June 1 to August 15 each year, plus alternating Christmas and Thanksgiving holidays. He was ordered to pay $847 per month in child support based on his resident salary of $61,000 per year. He was also ordered to pay half of uncovered medical expenses, half of extracurricular activities, and he'd be responsible for all travel costs when the children visited him in Baltimore. The student loan debt, all $240,000 of it, was determined to be his separate debt since it was taken out in his name only for his education. Thank God for that at least. But here's the kicker. The decree also stated that once David completed his residency and became an attending surgeon, we would revisit child support. His attorney had argued that his future income should be considered, and the judge agreed that adjustments would be made once his earning potential was realized. So essentially, I'd spent 7 years supporting him through medical school. He cheated on me and left me with primary custody of 2 young children, and in the future I'd get more child support. Great. That really made up for everything. David moved to Baltimore in June 2019. He took the kids for his first summer possession from June 1 to August 15, and I spent those 75 days feeling like I was missing a limb. I called Sophia and Ryan every night on FaceTime. Sophia would tell me about the things Juliana was buying her: new clothes, new toys, trips to the aquarium. Ryan, who was only 3, would just press his face against the screen and say, "Mama," over and over. I cried myself to sleep most nights that summer. But something else was happening during those 75 days. Something I didn't expect. I was rediscovering myself. I quit my overnight job at the urgent care clinic. I couldn't handle 3 jobs anymore, and with David's child support as small as it was, plus my 2 remaining incomes, I could just barely make ends meet. I started spending more time with my sister Carmen and my mother. I started going back to yoga classes on Saturday mornings when the kids were gone. I started reading books again. Actual books for pleasure, not just children's stories before bed. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that their worth isn't defined by who they loved. And I started therapy. My therapist, Dr. Lisa Park, was a Korean-American woman in her 50s who specialized in trauma and divorce recovery. She was recommended by Carmen's law firm. They kept a list of good therapists because so many of their clients needed one. Dr. Park helped me understand something crucial. I had been erasing myself long before David left. I had been so focused on being the perfect supportive wife, on sacrificing everything for his dreams, that I'd forgotten I had value too. "Jennifer," she said during one of our sessions, "you worked 3 jobs. You raised 2 children essentially as a single parent. You managed all the household finances and responsibilities. You did all of this while your husband contributed nothing and betrayed you. Do you understand how strong that makes you? I'd never thought of it that way. I'd always thought of myself as weak for staying, for ignoring the warning signs, for not confronting him sooner. But Dr. Park helped me see that survival isn't weakness. Doing whatever it takes to keep your family afloat isn't weakness. It's actually the opposite. When the kids came back in mid-August, I was different. I was still exhausted, still struggling financially, still heartbroken about the divorce. But I was also starting to remember who Jennifer Peters was before she became Mrs. David Martinez. And let me ask you something. How many of you have lost yourselves in a relationship? How many of you have woken up one day and realized you don't even recognize the person in the mirror? Drop a comment if you've been there, because I want you to know that you can find yourself again. Takes time, but you can. The first year after the divorce was the hardest and the most transformative of my life. David's child support payments were inconsistent. Some months he'd pay on time. Other months he'd be 2 weeks late, and I'd have to contact his attorney to get the payment released. Once he was so late that I had to file a motion for enforcement, and he got sanctioned by the court. His excuse: residency is demanding. I forgot. He had time to post Instagram photos of fancy dinners with Juliana, but he couldn't remember to pay child support on time. But here's what I learned about myself during that year. I was capable of so much more than I'd given myself credit for. In September 2019, I got a promotion at my marketing job. My boss, Catherine, remember her? She'd been watching me struggle for years. Finally sat me down and said, "Jennifer, you're one of the most talented marketers I've ever worked with. But you've been distracted and exhausted. Now that you seem more focused, I want to give you more responsibility." She promoted me to senior account manager with a $15,000 raise. It wasn't a fortune, but it meant I could finally quit my second freelancing job and just work one full-time position. For the first time in 3 years, I worked 40 hours a week instead of 70. I also started reconnecting with old friends I'd abandoned during my marriage. My book club welcomed me back with open arms. My college roommate, Ashley, who lived in Austin, started visiting more frequently. I even went on a few dates. Nothing serious, just coffee or dinner with guys I met through dating apps. It felt strange at first, like I was betraying something. But Dr. Park helped me understand that moving forward wasn't betraying anyone. It was choosing myself. The kids adjusted better than I expected. Sophia struggled more. She was old enough to understand what divorce meant, and she definitely noticed that Daddy's house had more toys and more money. She'd come back from visits with David and Juliana and make comments about their big house, their nice cars, the vacations they took her on. It hurt. I won't lie. It hurt to know I couldn't compete financially with a surgeon and a doctor. But I could give my children something they weren't getting in Baltimore: stability, presence, and unconditional love without manipulation. Ryan, thankfully, was too young to really understand. He knew Daddy lived far away and he'd get excited for their FaceTime calls, but his real attachment was to me. I was the one who kissed his scraped knees, who sang him to sleep, who knew he was afraid of the dark and needed his dinosaur nightlight. During that first year, I also started documenting everything. Every late child support payment. Every time David canceled a FaceTime call. Every promise he made to the kids and broke. Patricia had advised me to keep records of everything just in case we needed it later. I didn't know then how important that advice would be. In November 2019, 6 months after the divorce, David called me with news. "Juliana and I are getting married in December," he said. "Just a small ceremony in Baltimore. Obviously the kids can't come since it's during school, but I wanted to let you know." He wanted to let me know. How thoughtful. "Congratulations," I said flatly. "Thanks. Also, I wanted to give you a heads up that we're planning to have kids of our own. Juliana is 40, so we're moving quickly. Just thought you should know so you can prepare Sophia and Ryan." He was having more kids. With the woman he'd cheated with. The woman who'd helped him destroy our family. And he wanted me to prepare our children for their new half-siblings. I hung up on him. Then I called Dr. Park and had an emergency session where I cried for an hour straight. But you know what? I survived it. I processed it, I grieved it, and I moved forward. Because that's what you do when you're a single mother working full-time and raising 2 kids mostly on your own. You don't have the luxury of falling apart. You grieve in the stolen moments, in the shower, late at night after the kids are asleep, on the drive to work. And then you put on your armor and face another day. By Christmas 2019, I'd established new traditions with Sophia and Ryan. We decorated our apartment with paper snowflakes Sophia made. We baked cookies together, burned half of them, but the kids thought it was hilarious. We watched Christmas movies and drank hot chocolate. It wasn't the picture-perfect family Christmas I'd once dreamed of. But it was ours, and it was real, and it was filled with more genuine love than any Christmas I'd had with David. The kids went to Baltimore for New Year to visit David and meet his new wife. When they came back, Sophia told me that Juliana was nice but not like a mommy. That was enough for me. In March 2020, the world changed. COVID-19 hit, everything shut down, and suddenly David's summer possession schedule became complicated. He called me in a panic. I can't take the kids this summer. The hospital is overrun with COVID patients. I'm working 80-hour weeks. It's not safe for them to be here. Part of me was relieved. I wouldn't have to spend another summer without my children. But another part of me was furious. The court order said he was supposed to have them. He'd fought for that time. And now he was just backing out? So you'll waive your summer possession? I asked. Yes. And Jennifer, I'm going to need to reduce my child support for a few months. Money's tight with the pandemic. Money was tight for a surgical resident making $61,000 a year who was married to a trauma surgeon making $350,000. But somehow money wasn't tight enough to stop posting Instagram photos of their new BMW. I contacted Patricia immediately. She filed a motion to lock in his child support obligation and to document his voluntary waiver of summer possession. But here's where things got interesting. During the discovery process for the motion, which required David to provide financial records, we discovered something shocking. Juliana had been paying off David's student loans. All $240,000 of them. She'd been making payments of $3,000 to $5,000 per month since they'd moved to Baltimore. Patricia immediately flagged this. Jennifer, if his student loans are being paid off by his spouse, that changes his financial picture significantly. He has more disposable income than he's claiming. We filed a motion to modify child support based on this new information. David's attorney fought it, arguing that Juliana's separate income couldn't be considered in calculating David's child support. But the judge saw through it. In Texas, if a spouse is paying significant portions of the obligated parent's expenses, that frees up income that should be going to child support. David's child support was increased to $1,200 per month, effective immediately with back pay for the previous 10 months. He was furious. He called me screaming about how I was being vindictive and greedy. Vindictive. I said calmly, David, you left me to raise our children alone after I spent 7 years supporting you through medical school. You cheated on me with your supervisor. You fought me for custody just to hurt me. And now you're angry that you have to pay a reasonable amount of child support? You're making this about money when you've never once asked how the kids are really doing. He hung up on me. We didn't speak directly again for 6 months. But during those 6 months something else came to light. Something that would change everything. My mother, Rosa, had been watching the kids one afternoon in August 2020 while I was at work. Sophia, who was now 7, was playing with my mother's phone and accidentally opened my mother's text messages. She saw a message from an unknown number. This is David's attending physician. I wanted to reach out to you privately. You need to know something about your daughter's ex-husband. My mother immediately called me and I called the number back. The woman on the other end was Dr. Michelle Rodriguez, an attending surgeon at Johns Hopkins who had been supervising David's residency. What she told me made my blood run cold. Ms. Martinez, she said, I'm violating some professional boundaries by telling you this, but I have daughters myself and I would want someone to tell me. Dr. David has been the subject of multiple complaints from nursing staff and female medical students about inappropriate behavior. Inappropriate behavior. That phrase could mean so many things and all of them were bad. Dr. Rodriguez continued. There haven't been formal charges because the women were afraid of retaliation, but the pattern is concerning. Unwanted advances, inappropriate comments, touching. He's been counseled twice by the residency program director. Are my children safe with him? That was my first question. I honestly don't know, Dr. Rodriguez said. The complaints have all been from adults. But the behavior pattern is troubling and his marriage to Dr. Kowalski is complicated. They fight. Loudly. Hospital staff have witnessed some concerning arguments. I thanked Dr. Rodriguez and immediately called Patricia. We need to file for an emergency modification of custody, Patricia said. This is potentially dangerous. But here's the brutal truth about family law. Allegations aren't enough. We needed proof. We needed formal complaints, police reports, something concrete. And we didn't have it. I spent the next 3 months terrified every time the kids went to visit their father. I questioned Sophia carefully after every visit. Not leading questions, because I knew that could be used against me, but gentle inquiries about her time there. Did Daddy or Juliana ever make you uncomfortable? I'd ask. No, Mama. Daddy mostly works. Juliana plays with us sometimes. I wanted to believe her. But the mother's instinct that something was wrong wouldn't leave me alone. In November 2020, my worst fears were almost realized. It was Thanksgiving week and David had the kids per the custody order. They'd flown to Baltimore on Tuesday and I was expecting them back on Sunday. On Friday evening I got a call from an unknown Baltimore number. Ms. Martinez? This is Officer Sarah Johnson with Baltimore City Police. Your daughter Sophia asked a neighbor to call us. We're at Dr. David's residence now. My vision actually went blurry. I couldn't breathe. Is she hurt? Is Ryan hurt? What happened? The children are physically fine, Officer Johnson said. But there was a domestic disturbance. Dr. David Martinez and Dr. Kowalski had a significant altercation. Your daughter was frightened and ran to a neighbor's house asking them to call for help. I was already pulling up flight information on my laptop while still on the phone. I'm coming to get them. Don't let them out of your sight until I get there. Ma'am, we can't keep the children from their father without a court order. But we're filing a domestic disturbance report, and Child Protective Services has been notified. I called Patricia at 8 p.m. on a Friday night. She answered. Thank God she answered. I need an emergency custody order. No. Tonight. Patricia worked through the night. By 6 a.m. Saturday morning, we had an emergency motion filed with the court. By noon we had a hearing scheduled for Monday morning. But Monday was too far away. My children were in Baltimore with a man who just had a violent domestic incident with his wife. I got on a plane Saturday evening. I arrived in Baltimore at 11 p.m. I drove straight to David's address, an upscale townhouse in the Federal Hill neighborhood. I knocked on the door. David answered, looking exhausted and disheveled. I'm taking the kids, I said. You can't do that. I have custody this week per the court order. The police were called to your house yesterday because you and Juliana had a violent fight in front of our children. Sophia was so scared she ran to the neighbors. I'm taking them, and if you try to stop me I'll call the police myself. For a moment I thought he was going to fight me. But then Juliana appeared behind him and I saw a bruise on her cheek. David had hit her. Or she'd hit him. Or they'd hit each other. I didn't know the details and I didn't care. My children had witnessed it and that was enough. Let her take them, Juliana said quietly. We need to figure out our own stuff. Sophia and Ryan were already packed. Sophia had packed both their bags. Bless her 7-year-old heart. She'd been ready to leave. We drove to the airport in silence. Sophia held my hand the entire time. Ryan fell asleep in his car seat. On the plane ride home, Sophia finally started talking. Mama, Daddy pushed Juliana and she threw a plate at him and it broke and they were yelling so loud. I took Ryan to my room and locked the door, but I could still hear them. So I ran to Mrs. Patterson next door and asked her to call for help. My 7-year-old daughter had protected her little brother and gotten them both to safety while the adults in the house were having a violent fight. I held her while she cried. They're in seat 23B on Southwest Airlines Flight 1847 from Baltimore to Houston, and I made her a promise. You will never have to be scared like that again. I promise. Has anyone else had that moment where you realize your child had to be the adult in a situation? Where they had to protect themselves because the people who were supposed to protect them failed? If you have, I'm so sorry. That guilt is something I still carry. The emergency custody hearing was held via Zoom on Monday, November 30, 2020. David appeared from his attorney's office in Baltimore. I appeared from Patricia's office in Houston, with Sophia and Ryan in the waiting room with Carmen. The judge heard testimony from Officer Johnson about the domestic disturbance call. She heard from the CPS investigator who'd interviewed both David and Juliana. She heard from the neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, who testified that she'd heard yelling and breaking glass before Sophia knocked on her door. David's attorney tried to downplay it. Your Honor, this was a single incident. A stressful argument between spouses during a difficult time. Dr. David has never harmed his children. Dr. Kowalski has never harmed the children. This doesn't warrant a change in custody. But Patricia was ready with everything we'd been documenting for over a year. She presented records of every late child support payment, every cancelled FaceTime call, every broken promise. She presented Dr. Rodriguez's statement about the complaints against David at the hospital, which was hearsay, but the judge allowed it for context. And she presented Sophia herself. The judge spoke directly to Sophia via Zoom. My brave, beautiful 7-year-old daughter told the judge in her own words what had happened that Friday night. I was scared, Sophia said. Daddy and Juliana were fighting really bad. I thought somebody was going to get hurt. So I took Ryan and we hid, and then I ran to get help. The judge's expression softened as she listened to Sophia. The ruling came down the same day. Judge Whitmore, same judge who'd handled our original custody case, modified the custody order effective immediately. I was granted sole managing conservatorship with David having supervised visitation only, to take place in Houston with a neutral third-party supervisor at his expense. He would no longer have summer possession. He would no longer have the children overnight. His child support was maintained at $1,200 per month, and he was ordered to pay my attorney's fees for the emergency motion. David was also ordered to complete an anger management course and to undergo a psychological evaluation before any consideration of unsupervised visitation. I'd won. Completely, totally won. But it didn't feel like winning. It felt like surviving. It felt like I'd spent 5 years fighting just to keep my children safe, and now they were safe, but we were all scarred by the experience. David was furious. He appealed the ruling, of course. His attorney filed motion after motion. But they were all denied. By January 2021, David and Juliana had separated. The domestic violence incident had apparently been the final straw in what was already a troubled marriage. They divorced by spring. I found out through Margaret, my former mother-in-law, who still kept in touch. She was devastated by what her son had become. I don't know where I went wrong, she told me during one of our phone calls. He wasn't raised like this. I didn't have an answer for her. People change. Or maybe they just reveal who they always were. David completed his residency in June 2024. He's now an attending surgeon at a hospital in Philadelphia, making close to $400,000 a year. His child support was modified to $2,800 per month based on his new income. He still has only supervised visitation, though he's appealed that ruling 3 times. He sees the kids about once every 2 months for a few hours at a supervised visitation center in Houston. He pays for the supervisor, $50 an hour, and he's bitter about it. Can tell. But Sophia is now 11 and Ryan is 8 and they're thriving. They're in therapy working through the trauma of those early years. They know their father, but they're not afraid of him anymore because they know I'll protect them. Me. I'm a senior director at my marketing agency now, making $95,000 a year. I'm dating someone wonderful. A teacher named Michael who's patient and kind and loves my kids like his own. I'm not the broken woman I was in 2019. I'm stronger. I'm wiser. I know my worth now. So what did I learn from all of this? What wisdom can I share with you if you're going through something similar? Your sacrifice doesn't obligate anyone to love you or stay with you. I gave David 7 years of my life, 3 jobs, my health, my career advancement, my time with my children, and none of that mattered to him. He still left. He still betrayed me. You cannot earn someone's loyalty through sacrifice. Either they have integrity or they don't. Financial abuse is real, and it often comes wrapped in pretty words about our future and temporary sacrifice. If you're in a relationship where you're working yourself to death while your partner contributes nothing, that's not partnership. That's exploitation. Trust your instincts. I knew something was wrong for over a year before I confirmed the affair. I saw the signs, I felt the distance, I noticed the changes. But I ignored all of it because I didn't want to face the truth. If your gut is telling you something is wrong, listen to it. Your intuition is based on thousands of tiny observations your conscious mind hasn't fully processed. Document everything. Every text message, every late payment, every broken promise, Every concerning incident. I never thought I'd need all those records I kept, but they saved me in court. Your children are more resilient than you think, but they're also more perceptive than you realize. Sophia knew something was wrong in our marriage before I fully admitted it to myself. Kids pick up on tension, distance, unhappiness, even when we think we're hiding it. You are not the sum of someone else's treatment of you. David treated me as disposable, as a temporary support system, as less than. But that doesn't mean I was those things. It means he was incapable of seeing my value. Your worth is not determined by whether someone else recognizes it. I want to take a moment here and talk directly to anyone watching who's in a similar situation. Maybe you're supporting a partner through school or career advancement. Maybe you're working multiple jobs while they pursue their dreams. Maybe you're ignoring red flags because you've already invested so much. Let me ask you, are you happy? Not will I be happy someday when this is over. But are you happy right now, today, in this moment? If the answer is no, if you're exhausted and unappreciated and taken for granted, then you need to seriously evaluate whether this sacrifice is worth it. I'm not saying leave at the first sign of difficulty. Relationships require sacrifice and compromise. But there's a difference between healthy sacrifice, where both people contribute and support each other, and unhealthy sacrifice, where one person gives everything and the other person just takes. And if you're already divorced, already fighting in family court, already dealing with an ex who's trying to destroy you, I want you to know that you can survive this. It won't feel like it some days. There will be nights when you cry yourself to sleep, mornings when you don't know how you'll get through another day. But you will. You'll survive, and eventually you'll do more than survive. You'll actually live again. It took me 2 years after the divorce before I felt like myself again. 2 years of therapy, of rebuilding, of learning to trust people again, of figuring out who Jennifer Martinez was outside of being someone's wife or someone's mother. But I did it. And if I can do it, so can you. It's been 5 years since David served me with divorce papers. 5 years since my world fell apart. Today Sophia is 11. She's in 6th grade, getting straight A's, and she wants to be a veterinarian. She's funny and smart and so much stronger than I was at her age. Ryan is 8. He's in 3rd grade, obsessed with dinosaurs and Lego, and he has no real memory of his parents being together. To him, this has always been normal. Mom's house and dad's supervised visits. They're good kids. Happy kids. Adjusted kids. They're in therapy, yes, but they're thriving despite everything they've been through. David is still in their lives, but on the periphery. He sends child support on time now. The threat of wage garnishment is a powerful motivator. He sees them for a few hours every couple of months. He sends birthday cards and Christmas presents. But he's not really their father in any meaningful way. He's just the man whose DNA they share. As for me, I'm genuinely happy now. Not, I'm pretending to be happy, or, I'm trying to be happy. I'm actually authentically happy. I love my job. I love my kids. I love the life I've built for us. I love Michael, my boyfriend of 2 years, who showed me what a healthy relationship actually looks like. I'm not bitter anymore, though I was for a long time. I'm not angry, though I had every right to be. I'm just at peace. David took 7 years of my life. He took my youth, my financial stability, my physical health, my mental health. He took so much. But he didn't take everything. He didn't take my ability to love, to trust, to rebuild, to be happy. He didn't take my children. Not really, not the parts that matter. And he didn't take my story. This is my story. It's painful and it's messy, and it's not the fairy tale I thought I was signing up for when I married David Martinez back in 2012. But it's real. And it's mine. And maybe it will help someone else who's going through something similar. Maybe you're watching this and you're in the middle of your own nightmare. Maybe you're working 3 jobs to support someone who doesn't appreciate you. Maybe you just got served with divorce papers after years of sacrifice. Maybe you're fighting for custody of your children against someone who doesn't deserve them. If that's you, I want you to know, you're going to make it. It won't be easy and it won't be quick, but you're going to make it. You're stronger than you know. You're worth more than anyone has told you. And you deserve better than what you're getting. One day, maybe not today, maybe not next month, maybe not even next year. But one day you're going to wake up and realize that you're happy. That you've rebuilt. That you've survived the thing you thought would destroy you. And on that day you'll look back at the person you are right now, the person watching this video in pain and fear and exhaustion, and you'll be so proud of them. So proud of yourself. Because you didn't give up. You kept fighting. You survived. Thank you for listening to my story. I know it was long and I know it was painful in places, but I hope it helped someone. If you've been through something similar or if you're going through it right now, please share your story in the comments. You never know who might need to hear it. You never know who you might help just by being honest about your pain. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, please share this video with them. Sometimes people need to know they're not alone. Sometimes they need to see that someone else survived the thing they're going through. Hit that subscribe button if you want to hear more real stories from real people. Hit the like button if this resonated with you. And hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. You are not alone. You are stronger than you think. And you deserve better than someone who treats you as disposable. My name is Jennifer Martinez. This is my story. And I'm finally free. Comment below, what's the biggest lesson you learned after giving too much to the wrong person? Thank you for listening. To everyone sharing their stories in the comments, thank you. You're not alone. If you're currently going through something similar, please know that it gets better. Takes time, but you will rebuild. You will be happy again. You are stronger than you know. And if you need resources, National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233. Legal aid for custody/divorce. Therapy/counseling resources. You deserve better. Don't give up.